Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, and hey, real quick before we jump in, today's vocabulary comes directly from a SpeakDuo lesson. So you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their English speaking abilities.
Yeah, honestly, it's just such a great way to actually use what we talk about here.
Totally. So today, we're on a mission. We are exploring 15 idioms specifically curated for advanced English learners so you can sound more natural and professional in testing environments.
Right, because when you're advanced, you already know the basics, right? You know how to say you're busy, but we want to give you those phrases that they hit different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just jump straight into the office trenches. Picture this. You're starting a new project, coffee is brewing, and you're just intensely focused on your screen, like you are glued to it.
Yeah, glued to, it literally means giving your undivided attention to a screen or a document.
Yeah.
And the nuance here compared to just, say, watching closely is that glued to implies this magnetic, almost inescapable physical fixation.
Like your eyes are literally tethered to the device.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like you physically cannot pull yourself away.
Oh, that's such a good visual.
Yeah.
So for like an IELTS Part 2 response, you could say, I was glued to my laptop analyzing competitor data for a project. It sounds so natural.
It really does. And, while you're glued to that screen, you might need to mark them up, which is our next phrase.
Mark them up. Okay, so wait, how is that different from just taking notes?
Well, taking notes usually means you have like a separate pad of paper. You're extracting information. But marking up specifically implies that you are physically or digitally altering the original document.
Oh, I see. Like highlighting and crossing things out.
Yeah, exactly. You're putting notes in the margins of the actual draft. So if you're talking to your boss, you'd say, I'll mark up the new contract with my revisions before the afternoon meeting.
Right, it sounds so much more hands-on. But, okay, let's say you're doing all this work, and then you realize you're running low on printer ink or coffee.
Right, a true office emergency. So running low means having a dwindling supply.
Mm.
But the key here, the nuance, is the timeline.
Oh, so?
Well, compare it to we are out of. If you're out of something, the crisis is already here. But if you're running low, it's a warning state. You still have time to take action.
Oh, it's like a yellow traffic light. So you could tell a colleague, hey, we're running low on the budget, which prompts them to do something before it's actually gone.
Exactly. It's preventative. Now, of course, when you're stressed and running low on sleep, you might get mixed up.
Oh, yeah. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, meaning you're confused with something else. And the difference between just being confused and being mixed up is that mixed up usually involves crossing the wires of two specific things, like two files or two dates.
Wait, so is this a good way to kind of soften the blow when you make a mistake with a superior?
Oh, absolutely. It's highly strategic. If you say you mixed up the meeting times for a workshop, it tells your boss you're not totally incompetent. You just swapped two pieces of data.
Right. You just made a mechanical error, but you quickly solved it. Okay, so moving from mistakes to actually nailing the job, you want your work to be up to par.
Yes. Up to par means meeting the required standards. And this actually comes from golf.
Right, like hitting the par for the course. So it doesn't mean perfect, right?
No, not at all. That's the crucial nuance. Compare it to saying a project is flawless. Up to par is just about hitting the acceptable baseline of quality.
Got it. Like asking a colleague, is the revised report up to par for the senior editor? Meaning, is it good enough to send?
Exactly. And sometimes to get things up to par, you just need something that does the trick, meaning it effectively solves a problem.
Does the trick. I like that. That sounds way less formal than, like, resolving the issue.
Yeah, resolving the issue sounds very corporate. Does the trick implies a fix that is surprisingly simple, clever, or just really quick?
Like telling IT, hey, a simple server restart did the trick. I use that one all the time.
Oh, we all do. And speaking of corporate environments, our next phrase is straight up, which means being plain and direct.
Okay, wait, I have to push back here. In an office, isn't being straight up a little risky? Like people get offended easily.
Well, it's all about how you frame it. You have to compare it to being blunt. Being blunt has this negative, almost rude connotation, like you don't care about their feelings.
Ah, okay.
But straight up implies a refreshing, genuine honesty. It's a compliment, like praising a colleague by saying, I really appreciate you being straight up about the risks of this project.
Oh, I see. It means they skip the confusing jargon. And, if you're straight up and your work is up to par, eventually you're going to beat them all.
Yeah, meaning to significantly outperform competitors. It's way stronger than just saying you succeeded. The nuance is the direct comparative victory over a specific group.
So, like in an IELTS story, you'd say the young startup trained hard and managed to beat them all to win the government contract. It sounds so
It
victorious.
really does. But, maybe you beat them all using methods that are kind of old school.
Okay, old school. This means preferring traditional methods. But how is that different from just being outdated?
Oh, massive difference. Outdated is an insult. It means it's useless now.
Right, like an old flip phone.
Exactly. But old school carries a sense of pride or respect. It's a choice. Like a boss who refuses apps and remains proudly old school with a heavy, leather-bound journal.
I love that. But even with all that old school wisdom, sometimes you just don't know the answer. And that's when you say the jury's out.
Right. The jury's out means a final decision hasn't been reached yet. And it's so much better than just saying, I don't know.
Because I don't know sounds kind of clueless.
Exactly. The jury's out implies an active, ongoing debate. Like, you're evaluating the evidence.
So in a meeting, you'd say, the jury's out on whether the new software feature will improve retention. You're actively watching the data.
Spot on.
Okay, so we've battled in the office, we've hit our standards, but now we are exhausted. Let's talk about the aftermath. Rest and recovery. First, you need to take a breather.
Taking a breather is taking a short rest to recover energy. The nuance here, compared to taking a day off, is the brevity. It's a very short tactical pause.
Like stepping out of a really heated board meeting to take a breather, gather your thoughts, and go back in.
Precisely. But then, when the day is actually over, you go home and you plop down.
Oh man, I feel this one in my bones.
Yeah, to plop down means to sit heavily from pure exhaustion. It is not a graceful movement. It's completely giving in to gravity.
Right. You don't just sit down.
Yeah.
You plop down on the couch like a sack of potatoes after a 12-hour shift.
That is the exact visual. And once you're on that couch, you might just be out like a light, meaning you fall asleep instantly and deeply.
Just boom, gone.
Yeah, compare that to sleeping heavily. You can sleep heavily but still take an hour to drift off. Out like a light is all about the speed. It's like a switch was flipped.
I remember telling a coworker, after that 30-mile hike, I got in my sleeping bag and was out like a light. It's so descriptive.
Yeah.
And then, you wake up, you feel better, and it's time to catch up with a friend.
Yes. To catch up means updating each other on recent events, but it's different from like informing or reporting.
Yeah, reporting sounds so one-sided.
Right. A catch-up is mutual. It's friendly. You're grabbing coffee with a former colleague to catch up and share industry news.
It's a real connection. And honestly, those moments of connection lead to our last phrase for today, which is heartwarming.
Heartwarming. It means causing joy or deep emotional satisfaction. And it's so much stronger than just saying something was nice.
Yeah, nice is a bit weak.
It is. Heartwarming has this profound resonance. It kind of restores your faith in humanity, like seeing a team rally to support a coworker going through a tough time.
What a great phrase for an emotional IELTS prompt.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered all 15. It is time for the superbly said quiz.
Let's do it.
All right, rapid fire time. I'm going to read 3 options for each phrase. Option A, option B, and option C. I'll repeat the phrase and then I'll say, feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
And just a quick tip for you guys listening, pay attention to the bad options. A lot of times they sound really robotic because they stack too many adjectives. Listen for the natural rhythm.
Great advice. All right, let's jump in. Question 1, old school. Which sentence uses the idiomatic phrase old school correctly based on context? Option A. The Professional Vintage Education Historical Preservation Academy was instructed to check old school during the antique building restoration. Option B. The deeply frustrated young retail clerk aggressively managed to completely drop a white line. Option C. Refusing to adopt digital note-taking apps, he remained proudly old school, insisting on using heavy leather-bound journals and fountain pens. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
So the answer is option C. He remained proudly old school. It captures that pride in traditional methods perfectly, like we talked about with the journals.
Awesome. Okay, question 2. Beat them all. Select the context where the phrase beat them all is most appropriately used figuratively. Option A. Surpassing dozens of highly experienced competing software firms, the young startup managed to beat them all and secure the government contract. Option B. The professional athletics, track and field sports referee was instructed to beat them all during the marathon starting line check. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly buy some large systems. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option A. The startup managed to beat them all. It perfectly shows that direct comparative victory over the rivals.
Nailed it. Question 3. The jury's out. In which situation does someone accurately utilize the advanced phrase, the jury's out, contextually? Option A. The professional legal courtroom criminal trial jury foreman was instructed to announce the jury's out during the deliberation ruling. Option B. While early consumer feedback on the new software feature has been generally positive, the jury's out on whether it will improve long-term retention. Option C. The completely terrified young wilderness traveler unexpectedly noticed an exceptionally massive heavy tool chest. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
That would be option B. The jury's out on the long-term retention. It shows an ongoing debate, whereas option A awkwardly tries to use it literally.
Right. Literal idioms rarely work. Moving on. Question 4. Does the trick. Which response best demonstrates the advanced phrase, does the trick, figuratively? Option A. Although we tried several complex debugging strategies, a simple server restart ended up doing the trick and clearing the error queue. Option B. The professional stage magic illusionist entertainment performer was instructed to does the trick during the evening magic show. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly catch that white balance. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
It's option A. The simple server restart ended up doing the trick. That surprisingly simple, clever fix.
Halfway there. Question 5. Up to par. How would a professional accurately use the phrase up to par contextually? Option A. The professional golf course athletic sports groundskeeper was instructed to check up to par during the championship tournament. Option B. The completely confused amateur theater group unexpectedly decided to proudly paint a clean frame. Option C. After receiving critical feedback from the senior editor, she rewrote 2 chapters to ensure the manuscript was finally up to par. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
Option C is the correct one. Ensuring the manuscript was up to par. She hit that acceptable baseline of quality.
Exactly. Question 6. Out like a light. Which scenario perfectly illustrates the meaning of the phrase out like a light contextually? Option A. The professional electrical lighting LED technician was instructed to check out like a light during the building wiring audit. Option B. Exhausted from completing a grueling 30-mile hike across rough terrain, he climbed into a sleeping bag and was out like a light. Option C. The incredibly clumsy hotel maintenance worker accidentally managed to quickly drop that red tray. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option B. He was out like a light in his sleeping bag, the speed of just instantly falling asleep.
Love that feeling. Question 7. Straight up. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrase straight up contextually? Option A. Instead of hiding his concerns behind diplomatic corporate phrasing, he was straight up about the risks involved in the project. Option B. The professional bartender mixology beverage preparation specialist was instructed to serve the cocktail straight up during the lounge shift. Option C. The deeply confused young kitchen assistant accidentally managed to quickly slice a fresh piece of buppa. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
It's option A. Being straight up about the risks. Honest and direct without being rude. Option C is pretty funny, though.
Yeah, slicing a fresh piece of up. All right, last one. Question 8. Take a breather. Which of the following statements correctly uses take a breather contextually? Option A. The professional scuba diving instructor was instructed to take a breather from the underwater oxygen tank during the reef exploration. Option B. Overwhelmed by back-to-back client calls, she decided to step outside and take a breather to gather her thoughts before the next meeting. Option C. The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly buy some large systems. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option B, stepping outside to take a breather, a quick tactical rest during a crazy day.
And we are done. Huge congratulations to you if you stuck through and mastered these high-level phrases. It's so easy to just settle for basic vocabulary, right?
Oh, totally. But internalizing the real nuance, like why someone is proudly old school instead of just outdated, that's what actually makes you sound native.
Exactly. And, it kind of leaves us with an interesting thought to chew on. How does the language we use actually shape our reality at work?
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. If you choose to describe a complicated issue as a situation where the jury's out, instead of just saying, we don't know, do you unconsciously invite more curiosity?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that slight shift in phrasing actually encourages collaboration instead of just shutting down the conversation.
Right. The words you choose aren't just labels, they're lenses that change how you see a problem. So next time you're glued to your screen, running low on energy, just remember you've got these 15 tools to help you out. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you next time.